Massive attacks on Russian fuel infrastructure, negotiations on the supply of new types of weapons, and calls for diplomatic pressure on Russia. Ukraine is preparing for an autumn offensive, which will begin at the end of September, shortly after the Belarusian-Russian Zapad military exercises. At the moment, there are no signs of a possible start to peace negotiations or a real breakthrough, even though the Kremlin's statements were completely different just a few days ago. 13%. This is the percentage of Russian fuel facilities that were reportedly destroyed by Ukrainian forces in recent days. The targets, located mainly behind the front lines, are responsible for supplying the Russian army. However, the effects of Ukrainian shelling are felt by all residents of the region. Prices have skyrocketed, many gas stations are out of fuel, and most are rationing it. In Kiev, Independence Day celebrations with representatives from the United States and the Prime Minister of Canada. We say that we need the European Union, yes, but it needs us no less. And everyone understands this and recognizes Ukraine as such, not as a poor relative, but as a strong ally. This is what the coalition of the willing is all about. That is what Washington was all about. That is what it is all about, and how to ensure stable, reliable, lasting peace. However, the road to peace is still long and bumpy. The Russians are demanding the return of Ukrainian territories, which Kiev will not agree to. In turn, the Kremlin wants to be the guarantor of Ukraine's security and is making the European stabilization mission conditional on the participation of Chinese and Russian soldiers only.
We are working through with our allies in the Coalition of the Willing and with Ukraine the modalities of those security guarantees on land, in the air, and the sea, and I would not exclude the presence of troops.
The debate over the presence of Western troops in Ukraine is heating up. Italy and France have had a sharp exchange of words, with Italian Deputy Prime Minister Matteo Salvini criticizing French President Macron for encouraging participation in the mission in Ukraine. In Milan, they say, catch the tram or get lost. You can go there if you want. Put on a helmet, a vest, a rifle, and go to Ukraine. I think Trump, with his manners, which can sometimes seem harsh or unusual, is succeeding where everyone else has failed, bringing Putin and Zelensky back to the table, which hasn't happened in years. Ultimately, it will be their decision to reach an agreement. According to Italian politicians, the declarations of some European countries to go to Ukraine do not serve the negotiations, but rather torpedo them. At the other end of the spectrum are countries that are not so much considering, as have already decided to participate in the mission.
We are ready to participate in the coalition of willing, and Estonia's contribution could be a company-sized unit. The exact allocation unit will be decided when the operational parameters will be clear.
The problem is that the Kremlin is making its consent to the stabilization mission conditional on the participation of its own and Chinese troops, which is unusual. In other words, forces that are currently attacking Ukraine. Without these conditions being met, Moscow will treat Western forces in Ukraine as hostile and, as representatives of Putin's regime have emphasized, legitimate targets for attack.